Hey, 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 what's up, everybody? Welcome to the month of October and hunting season and episode number 82 of the White Knuckle Podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Everybody, welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast. Today I'm joined with my co-host who is down in Iowa, Mr. Todd Prignitz, and a guy that probably doesn't need any introduction whatsoever, Mr. Mark Drury. Guys, how's it going?
We're well. I'm well. I think Todd's well. It's deer season's approaching, and there's cold fronts coming. So who couldn't have a smile on their face, right?
Oh, dude, I'm totally pumped. I've been wanting to talk whitetails with Mark for so long. I've talked with you a couple times, Mark, at different trade shows. But at trade shows, it's just tough because, especially for yourself, you got so many people that you feel, responsible basically for taking a little bit of time and saying hello to and all that, where I always feel bad for, taking your time and chatting. But, man, you've got, just like Jason had mentioned, we've all grown up watching, the whole Drury family basically. And I think in some way, shape or form, you've kind of created bits of the monsters and all of us. And I don't know of another guy. You're as crazy as I am. That's for sure. And I love talking with anybody who's just got it bad for whitetails. And I think you are right at the top, man.
I don't know about that. I'm sure my wife could speak to that, but I just feel like it's normal.
Well, you guys have recently launched a new app called Deercast, and it has taken the industry by storm. I've seen it everywhere, and it sounds like the most perfect amount of information in one place for a whitetail hunter. Can you kind of tell us about the app and how it came to be?
Well, I always say the app came out of self-preservation, just simply because of the fact that during the deer season, my phone would blow up literally every cold front or every warm front going, what are the deer doing? What's going on? And everybody wanted to know because I've been analytical about, the weather and what makes them move. And I'm tongue in cheek with that comment, obviously, but
Sure.
Honestly, we wanted to do something that helped a lot of different deer hunters understand that there are certain aspects to the weather that make deer move and also suppress them from moving. And we felt like by putting all those different variables together in an app through an algorithm, we could, with reasonable accuracy, predict trends or tendencies in deer and deer habits. So that's why we created Deercast. And, that's just the start of the app, obviously. We've got the entire Drury Outdoors library in there. We've got 20,000 minutes of DOD TV in there. We've got 10,000 minutes of Mossy Oak stuff in there. So it's just filled with good stuff and good information. And it's not just the cheat sheet. It doesn't just say, great, good, poor, or bad.
Sure.
It also, if you take the time to go through the interviews that follow those predictions, it'll tell you why we liked that day's weather or why we disliked that day's weather in a series of very informational interviews about the weather and how deer react to certain conditions when they occur. Because deer are instinctive and they instinctively do what the weather dictates them to do. And luckily, if you can predict the weather accurately, I think you can predict deer movement with relative accuracy. Now, what the app can't do is predict or interpret whether a coyote cleared your bed out, whether there's a lot of hunting pressure, whether you're sitting there on the wrong wind, whether you've hunted that stand 20
Sure.
days in a row and the deer are onto you. It can't do those things, but it can certainly reflect, good patterns in weather, which enhance deer activity during daylight, and it can also, predict poor patterns as well.
Well, I'm kind of analytical as well, so it struck a chord with me, the weather aspect, because it is such a key component of my strategy every year and using those cold fronts specifically and different barometric pressure. But what struck a chord with me is I have not found a good weather app that gives me the information in a way that I can understand easily. And I think a lot of other guys are in the same boat. None of them were really designed for this before. So I can't wait to put it to use and just to try to see if I can have consistencies with what you guys are doing, kind of just like what you mentioned as far as, guys blowing up your phone. Normally, we would only have 2 or 3 guys to reference, my good buddy Tyler Tissue or Jason or a few guys on our team. We're texting back and forth. What are you seeing? What are you seeing? But to be able to take that on a grand scale is like, dude, there's a lot to be learned from that. And I'm excited to be playing with it this year.
No question. And the other thing we want this to be is a learning tool where we all learn together. If we can accumulate a bunch of dyed-in-the-wool hardcore deer hunters and all have our input in there about, what we're seeing out there, and we eventually want to have different generations of the app to where you actually see the heat coming your way from the front and, people reporting and all that type of stuff back in terms of how the deer movement is. So that's all in the works right now. So we're just at the start of this thing. It's a very good start out of the block, but we have plans to make it really incredible from a deer hunting perspective. And we're laser focused on deer. I've had lots of questions about other game animals, but we haven't studied those like we have now. Not to say we might, tap into some of our friends that are experts in other fields and see how weather, relates to ducks or elk or anything else. But right now we're laser focused on whitetail deer.
When you came up with this idea, and it's been out for your team has used it now for a year, so you've had some time to play with it. What kind of results did you see from that?
The results were great. The team loved it, straight out of the box. We did this algorithm with an app developer, and there just so happened to be a pilot that was a programmer there, or a programmer who's also a part-time pilot. So he understood weather intimately like Terry and I did. Every single aspect of weather. When you're a pilot, you get everything, right?
Right.
So it was easy to relate to him what we were thinking and what causes and effects the weather had on the deer movement, because he understood our terminology. So we were just lucky in the fact that their head programmer was a pilot and understood weather. He did not deer hunt, but he understood weather, and he was a very intelligent guy, and it was easy to convey to him what we wanted in this app. So we worked, tirelessly for days on end, because what the weather does and how it affects the deer movement changes as the phases change. You guys are familiar with our show 13, and you see these light switch events happen through the fall. Like one day the deer will be doing this, and then all of a sudden they just go underground and you don't see them for 10 days, and then they come back out looking different and all that. And the weather changes, and what times of the day they walk change. All those different things change, and the algorithm has to interpret all of that in a phase-by-phase basis. So it took us forever to go phase by phase. So we weight the different variables separately in each phase. In other words, cloud cover may be weighted more heavily in phase 1 than it is in phase, say, 7, 8, or 9, something like that as an example. Wind direction, wind speed, barometric pressure, the sweet spot for barometric pressure, all of those things that we've seen through the years, the ideal optimum conditions, they change in a phase-by-phase basis because the weather's changing. If you look at what the weather's like now in September and what the deer are seeking out in terms of they want cooler weather, well, that's going to change drastically by December when they're trying to warm up. So the algorithm has all of that in it, and I say it's just a very, very sharp algorithm because we worked so hard at making it right out of the box. Then we went out and tested it. It was just spot on last fall, and I really wish the weather would have been a little different last fall because, as you guys will recall, we had below average temperatures and a lot of high pressure last year. So The app kept saying, great, 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 great. And everybody's like, man, all it says is great every day. And I'm like, well, it is great. Look at the temperature, look at the pressure, look at the fronts we're having, and the deer moved their butts off last fall. It was one of the best movement falls I've seen. So it was spot on. We tweaked it a little bit because we felt like it was a touch optimistic in a couple of phases. We tweaked that. We also picked up on a new trigger that we saw the weather doing consistently because I started studying it even harder than normal. We put that into the algorithm as an additional variable. And right now it's, out of the box, it was studying 11 variables. Right now it's studying 13 plus the 13 phases. So on an hour-by-hour basis, it's interpreting 26 different things.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, just to sort of restate what I think you said, is that there's different inputs that are relative to the forecast, depending upon what phase the deer are in. Like, obviously right now they're in their end of summer, early fall pattern. What makes them move is going to be different today than it is 30 days from now.
Absolutely. Cloud cover right now is something that enhances deer movement. In my opinion, it suppresses it in December. Absolutely. Yeah. Because it cools the earth, right? They're looking to cool off. It's the cooler days. It's all about thermal units and your departure from average temperature. And when you get below it, which clouds often help it get below it, you're going to see better movement than you will in December when they cool the earth off and they're looking for sun and warmth and thermal units. So, it's reversed now versus then, and that switches throughout the season.
One of the cool things I can't wait to get into with it is, depending, a lot of guys out there, and myself included, and I think we all at certain degree have to deal with other hunters, other pressures and stresses on these animals. And sometimes it's nice to have something to compare to, just to know whether it's you or your area, or if it's something that's consistent going around across the board. And I think that's what we all started texting back and forth was, hey, are you seeing anything? No, are you seeing anything? Okay, it makes you feel a little better that you're not an idiot today. but
you're not alone. You're not alone. And, I have a great story from the first night of the Missouri season this year. And it was, the temperature was above the average high by 6 or 7 degrees. So, I'm sitting in a box blind in this bottom field after a deer I had chased last year. And it's such a hidden little hidey hole. I won't even go in there to check the cameras. I just went in there with the assumption that he was going to be back, right? Yeah. Because I felt like he was alive. And I haven't checked the camera all summer because I'm so anal about intrusion. I just went in there and hunted him. And I never saw a deer that night. And the app was reporting good. It was telling me good. And I was like, oh, man, this is terrible. Here
back to the drawing board, right?
Yeah, I never saw a deer. I get out of there. I don't have a signal down there, and my phone's lighting up with other buddies. Oh, my God, I saw 15 deer. I saw 20 deer. And I'm like, how is this possible? I never saw a deer down here. And I had pulled the cards when I was in there after dark. I went over to the camera and pulled the cards because I hadn't pulled them. And for whatever reason, the deer just aren't in there this year. I mean, I had like 300 pictures on one card, and it should have been 3,000, and they're not there. And since then, I had card pulls on multiple other fields, and all of them were lit up that night. So it was on me because I hadn't done my homework. I went to a stupid spot. The deer weren't there. Well, of course you're not going to see them if they're not there. So, the app can't tell you where to hunt. It can only tell you whether they should or shouldn't be moving. But the app was right on. It was good. Every other field I looked at had shooters on it. But I was sitting down there in that hole and never saw a deer. So it just goes to show you got to make smart choices as well.
I'm kind of glad you brought that up because we get it's the same thing. I'm on a much different scale than you, but I still am so fortunate to hunt in some beautiful area in southeast Iowa. And people, kind of have this assumption, oh, you have it easy. And as you know, no big bucks are easy to kill no matter where you're hunting, doing it the way we're doing it with bows and arrows and trying to film them and everything. But there are times where even Mark Drury makes mistakes or learns something. And I think Jason and I were talking about it the other day on a podcast where it was basically, the best hunters I know are the guys who just can't get enough information. And I mean, a good friend of mine is Lee Lukoski, and he's the same. It's just, there's never enough. You can always learn something. And each season you make mistakes that you look at, at the end of the season and say, I'm going to change that next year. But that never changed. But I think that's a part of being an excellent hunter is your willingness to go on instinct. And I know you've killed a lot of big bucks over the years on instinct. So you have a trust in that in the same way that I do. You're probably at definitely a whole different level, but at the same time, like, dude, that's hunting. Like sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong.
Absolutely it is, and I'm like a sponge to this day. If I'm around Lee or if I'm around Bill Winkie, if I'm around Grant Woods, I'm asking questions, man, and I'm soaking it in and comparing notes. And what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? Or Dan Perez, these guys that are just, killers. And if you're not learning, then I always say you're not looking and you're not listening, because those are the 3 L's. When you look and you listen, you're going to learn something that day, regardless of what it is something that you did wrong or something you did right, confirmation of what you're doing right. So you can always learn. And I always say, and I've been saying it a lot about the app, together we all learn and we all get smarter. This knowledge base is going to be incredible, in my opinion, in another few years. I really think it's going to be like the ultimate accumulation of whitetail hunters all getting better and getting smarter and propping each other up and congratulating each other and keeping it positive. I want this app to be, everything that social media at times it disappoints all of us so greatly.
Oh, you definitely hit the nail on the head there. The real time, I can't imagine, dude, in the next few years with the number of people who have already downloaded this and how many, your test sample is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the information is going to get more and more accurate. But I'm just imagining the real time information day by day with all these different hunters putting their information in and how we can all learn from that. It's going to be on a whole different level than anything we've ever seen before. So I'm excited just for my own use, basically.
Absolutely. And it's just, it makes us all better. It makes us all better stewards of the land. It's not just about killing the deer. It's about leaving it better than you found it. All the different things all of us do for food plotting. You're liable to be doing something that sparks the interest of somebody up in Pennsylvania and says, hey, I can do that. It's just it's just in the now. And we have a piece within the Deercast called Deercast Now. So we show every kill as they happen. Terry killed a giant last night in Missouri. I mean, a monster.
No kidding.
It scored like 158, but the frame of this freaking monster is just awesome. One of his biggest frame deer ever. And that kill will be on the app here in just another few minutes or within the hour or so. So as we kill them, we're putting them in Deercast Now. Every kill of the whole season, there should be 100 by the end of the year. So, you can go in and just watch the kills and go, oh, Terry did this, and that's how he killed it, and be, learn as we go. So that's another thing we wanted to do was get the information out there almost in a live, type scenario to where it's within just a few hours of the kill.
I was paging through the app as Todd and I were recording another podcast earlier, and I saw that I think there was a small write-up in there that Terry had shot one last night.
Did you see the pictures of it?
Yeah.
It's a freaking stud for Missouri now. I mean, a stud. I was so happy for him last night. It
is truly it's a giant deer. I'm surprised to hear you say what it scored, but who cares? I guess at the end of the day, it's still a giant deer. I would have estimated it much bigger than that in terms of score.
Short ones. It had short ones, short fours. I added it up in my head, and I came to 159 and texted him that, and then he texted later. He said 157 and a few A. So I said, literally the largest 157 in history, LOL. And he goes, indeed. But short one, short four just kind of hurt the score a little bit. But frame, it's a 10, and who cares? It's a big old mature deer. I don't care what they score, man. When they're mature, that is a trophy, regardless of what's on their head.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. Half of it, I grew up in Michigan, so getting a chance to hunt in Iowa the last 15 years, the body size is still impressed me every time. And when you walk up on one of these giants, and especially when they have a huge rack on their head, and the bodies just get bigger and bigger and bigger, dude, it's like I just want to jump on top of them and hug them. There's something magnificent about these giant-bodied bruisers, in that they can survive out in the field to that point in their life. It's still amazing to me, everyone.
Agreed, man. And you're like me. I grew up in southern Missouri where I had never seen a deer over like 110, 115, right? So when I first started hunting Iowa, every single 2-year-old I saw, I thought it was a Boone and Crockett. And to this day, every time I see a racked buck, and Wade's the same way, we both just jump. Our hearts jump. Oh my God,
big buck, big buck.
They're all shooters until proven otherwise, yep. Right?
But dude, I think there's something to it, because I'm friends with a bunch of guys who grew up in Iowa down here, and they kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say spoiled, because they've definitely earned it and everything, but I certainly have a different appreciation. Same thing. I see anything with a rack over 100 inches, and my first instinct is big buck.
Yeah.
It gets your heart pumping, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's probably why you've done so well over the years, is because that passion just keeps getting stronger and stronger, and it can only go up, I guess. I don't know. I guess we're just lucky, yeah.
It does, man. I hunt harder and harder every year, and I think it probably comes with age a little bit. You know, Terry's 10 years my elder, so I always think, okay, well, I at least got 10 more years because he's still doing it, you know. But it's somewhere I crossed the halftime somewhere. I'm certain of that. I'm into the second half of my hunting life, you know, because I see other guys somewhere. It seems like in the mid 70s to early 80s, you see guys really slowing down, you know. And I'm like, you never know how many seasons you have left. So I hunt harder now than I ever have because I don't want to leave a second behind or miss out on a minute that I could be sitting there deer hunting or turkey hunting. And I hunt harder for turkeys than I do deer by a long shot. I really get aggressive during turkey season.
You touched on a point that it was one of my questions I had for you. And when I used to, when I first started to hunt down here in Iowa, we were filming, had first started filming. So I had a cameraman living with me. We hunted every day from October until the end of the season. And I found myself kind of over hunting certain areas. I just didn't have the amount of property to hunt, particularly for individual animals, when I started really targeting one specific buck or two specific bucks each year. When I started getting to the point where on a lot of hunts, I would literally just stop hunting or not hunt if the conditions weren't right, things like that. Are you ever in a position, like specifically, let's say when you're hunting in Iowa here, like, and it's the hardcore hunting time, is there any hunts that you guys skip, or are you always in the woods every morning, every night?
No, we skip based on weather, or we'll hunt a less than desirable spot just because, you know, we feel like it's not going to be a good movement. And
Sure.
That's what I always say about deer casts. They're like, well, why do I need to know? You know, I hunt every day. Well, at least you know whether to go into that spot or not. That's your number one spot, or stay out, you know, and maybe hunt something a little bit more perimeter based on what the movement predictor is giving you. So there's a lot of ways to learn from it. And I think that's one of the key points, is just be wise about your stand choices. But no, we certainly skip days, especially if it's as bad, you know, where it's really, really low pressure and warm temperatures and stale air. You know, I mean, there's just days that you need a mental break as well, especially if they're not moving. But there aren't a lot that we skip, I will say that.
Okay. And I don't know, you guys are in the same boat, but we're also doing business this time of year. So it's like, not only do you have, you know, the busyness of hunting season, but that's also when we're selling products and everything else. And sometimes just for your own enjoyment, you can get burnt out, you know, especially the filming thing when you got a camera guy with you all the time. I don't know how you guys do it, to be honest with you. I started self-filming a few years ago, and now that's like another, I don't know. That's become my passion now, is self-filming, because it's a huge challenge, but it's also a huge bonus because I can hunt areas that you just can't get another guy up in those trees and those spots.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you're right. I mean, the burden of fall has become greater and greater with time. Social media has done that. You know, our business model has switched drastically through the years from the days when we just hunt every day and at the end of the season put together a DVD. Well, now look at the deliverables we deliver, you know, to all of our partners via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, there's not a day goes by that I don't have some requirement to do from a social media standpoint. And luckily this worked time-wise because I'm driving over to look at a new farm right now. But on a daily basis, I'll bet you through the fall, Wade and I average at a minimum 12-hour days, and most days are 14 and 15, especially if you kill one. I mean, there's just no rest for the deer hunter this time of the year anymore. I mean, the requirements are just too great.
No, that's why I respect all, you know, any of the top TV guys. I know what they go through. Just having a camera, you know, camera people living with you, or you know, being around all the time, it puts a heck of a lot of pressure on. You know, and they're on the payroll, so you're, you know, it's a different world. I love it. I'm kind of glad I'm able to do, you know, other things that I enjoy as well. But you really got to have it bad, and I think that's why you just see so many guys come and go in the world of television, because you know, be careful what you wish for. If you want to become a professional hunter and be hunting full time, you got to realize it is absolutely a wicked amount of work with very little sleep.
You got to want the want, as my buddy Jim Tomey always says. Charlie Manuel told him that when he first started in baseball. Charlie was his manager at AA or AAA1, And he said, Jim, you got to want the want, meaning you've got to want it so bad that you want it. You know, you got to want the want. And if you don't have that, man, you're not going to make it. And, of course, Jim did, and we watched him get inducted into the Hall of Fame, a month and a half ago. So you got to want it or you're not going to make it. And your cameraman's got to have that same desire. And I'm lucky in the fact that Wade Robinson, he actually keeps me out there, man. I think he's more hungry than I am. He's 27, but holy cow, does he have the desire to – he's still bloodthirsty, man. I'll tell you that much.
Well, and it makes it fun too because you get to share those. That's the one thing I do miss. Kyle is my guy. It's just the nicest human being, basically on earth. It's just been unbelievable to me for all over the years. But that's the one element I do miss is it's fun to be able to look at somebody else up in the tree stand, have a conversation, or be able to celebrate a moment, or to share the loss or bad situation with. It adds a whole different element to the hunt, and I do miss that. That's for certain. But to each their own. That's what's great about. We've said it in a million podcasts. It's what makes America absolutely unbelievable from the hunting standpoint. Is there's so many options that if you can't have fun, then find something else to go chase. There's just we're so blessed here.
Oh man, are we? Especially blessed. That's for sure. We're lucky.
Absolutely.
Well, I've got a question, Mark, about the app. Just to try and this is honestly it's selfish, but I'm looking at and I've played with it quite a bit. I'm looking at the app, and you can really drill it down to the day, and today is poor, at least in Wisconsin, where I'm at. And however, at the end of the day, there's going to be a cold front that's pushing in, and it looks like the rain will subside for maybe an hour and a half before darkness comes. And as I look at your app, it goes from poor to orange to green. Am I understanding it correctly that you're predicting sort of that last hour of day could be money, so to speak?
Sure, of course. Yeah, the app is. I'm not. The algorithm is interpreting those. The algorithm is interpreting that condition that the rain's going to stop, and then they should move. Now, that's one of the trickiest predictions because it is very hard, in my opinion. If you watch all the different weather apps, you can look at 5 or 6. And they will interpret the start and end of a rain event differently, and also the precipitation rate. So therefore, the algorithm can only be as accurate as the weather that's being piped into it, right? So the weather that's coming into it is coming from weather.com. So it's based off of whatever weather.com is interpreting, if that makes sense. Yep. Now, AccuWeather might be different. Some of the other WeatherBug and all these other Yahoo Weather, they may be different yet. So it's only as accurate as the weather coming into it. But if weather.com is predicting rain that ends at a certain time, then of course it's going to say, yes, that's a trigger, because the end of a rainfall event is one of the main triggers you could possibly have.
Okay. Yes, one of the best over the years I've ever had.
Ever.
That's what Todd and I were talking about prior to getting you on the calls. I had an encounter Saturday night with a deer, and I went in there because I just had a suspicion that he was going to be there. Your app said it was going to be good, if not great. I can't remember exactly. I just knew it was a good indication, and lo and behold, I saw him in a different spot than I expected to, and unfortunately ran out of camera light to shoot him. But that's the game we play. So I'm going to go back in there tonight and set up in a little bit different situation, and hopefully get a little closer. But I was concerned about whether or not the rain would affect them, and both you and Todd are of the same opinion that it's a good thing provided it ends.
It's a phenomenal thing. Even if it lightens, it doesn't necessarily have to end completely. Even if it just goes from a heavy rain to lighter rain, that's generally something that'll get them up on their feet. And I've seen times like that where the only thing you see on their feet is a big mature buck. I've seen that many times. So, yeah, I like hunting in the rain, but you got to get there before it ends. Otherwise, you're late.
Oh, dude, and it always, go figure, always the best times to kill big bucks is the worst possible conditions for filming.
Always.
Yeah. Every time. One real quick question I have for you, Mark, is just a general question is, what would you say percentage-wise you spend in ground blinds or box blinds compared to tree stands?
85-90% in the blind anymore.
Okay. Is it just so you can control the situation easier with filming that aspect, your scent and everything?
I've started this podcast out talking about how anal I am about intrusion. And man, inside those box blinds, whether it be a Muddy Bull or one that we built ourselves, your scent goes down to almost nothing. The access in is one that we've already strategized. We put the blind where we want it, and there's generally food in front of it. And we get a lot of pushback from social media standpoint that people don't like our style of hunting, but you can't argue with the results of that style. I mean, it has absolutely changed our overall success rate when we stopped going into our timbers. It's amazing the damage a guy does and doesn't know he's doing it just by entering and exiting that stand. When we started staying the heck out of the bedroom and hunting the fringe of the bedroom at all times, our success ratio has soared. So while people may not like it, I'm not going to change from doing it because it is extremely effective. It's the most effective way to kill a giant, in my opinion. I'm very goal oriented. So when we're talking about to any hunters, you just got to ask yourself, what are your goals? Is your goals to hunt as many days in the stand each year as possible, or is it to kill the bucks that nobody else can kill in your area? And you really have to be honest with yourself. What are you willing to do? So that's one of my biggest theories is, just people just overhunt the crap out of their areas. And generally they do that before it's even time to even move in the first time. But it is, again, what you enjoy doing in hunting, and you guys obviously enjoy killing monster whitetails, and you're doing a heck of a job at it. Like, you've got it down to a science, man. So kudos to you. I appreciate it. And it's just evolution, right? I mean, people used to sit on the ground in plaid years ago shooting a round ball muzzleloader. And through time we've evolved, and this has been part of our evolution, is just staying out of our bedrooms and hunting it on the fringe out of some sort of blind. It keeps your scent controlled. It keeps your movement at a minimum, where we just don't get found very often anymore. And when you don't get found and you've got a good access in and out, you can hunt stand on multiple days. We do it all the time. And I mean, every sit's like your first one because they never knew you were there the last time. Yep.
And I've created similar areas on my farm, just on kill plots with ground blinds and access. Like, that's where you can really put a plan together and learn. And I know you're the same way that I am. Like, each year you're always tweaking and tuning and trying to make it better. And, that's the fun of it to me, is playing with the deer and your properties, and management has really become my passion as much as actually chasing them themselves.
Absolutely, man. There's nothing more enjoyable than the chess match.
Well, there you have it, our interview with Mr. Mark Drury. And as he mentioned, the chess match. The chess match has likely started for all of us here recently. It's October 1st when this show airs, so all of us should be in season. With that, we want to say good luck to everybody. Be safe, wear your safety harness, make good choices, all those things your mom or dad would tell you before you go out. We hope you get the big one. We want to also remind you that Ozonics, our partner in this podcast, is now factory ship direct. What does that mean to you? It means that you can get a better deal than maybe you could in the past, because they are 100% in control of their pricing. They have no special deals that they have to do or anything like that. They can give you, the consumer, the best deal possible. And they've allowed us to come up with our own white knuckle bundle. So you can go to www.ozonicshunting.com/WKP to get the Ozonics WKP bundle. With that, I'll close out the show for today. Again, good luck to everybody. Jason out.